Welcome to Breaking Through the Contradictions. The goal here is to review some of the common contradictions we have lived and have had various conversations about and how it impacts various areas of a child's growth. We invited different parents, business owners, and friends to have a candid conversation on how some of the contradictions we live contribute and or creates larger barriers to supporting our youth. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, speakers, and participants in this context are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the organizers, hosts, or any affiliated individuals or organizations. We encourage open dialogue and diverse perspectives, but the individual viewpoints shared during this discussion are personal and should not be attributed to any collective entity involved. We are here.
Great to see you. Hi,
Nice to
Tabitha.
see you. Nice to see you again, Christine. How are you?
Doing good today. How about you?
I'm doing good. It's Thursday. There's things going on. So, yep, I
Yeah, I'm
think
getting.
that it's going to be okay. Oh my gosh, please don't tell me I'm going to get kicked out. Like, look, I lost power one day.
Uh-huh.
Like, literally, as I was getting ready to load on the call, it just dropped me off. And then
Huh.
and then the one time that I lost power, Sia and Rocky were in there having a conversation. It's like, hey, whatever. You need power to move.
Yes, you sure do. Yeah, this week is going better. I took a couple days off last week, so now I got everything caught up and I'm getting a little bit ahead. So it's better than being behind. So that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Great thing. So, okay, Christine, today our conversation. My kid is sick, but I have to take them to school. Now, I know right away when we were really talking about this first, we thought, nah, is that really a contradiction? Are we really doing that? Whatever. But it's a compound contradiction. It actually creates additional contradictions on top of it, the way I see it. Okay, you can't be making all that noise. I just break my monitor. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so I don't think I did, but you never can tell. um, the one thing about this is this: we tell our children to prioritize themselves and to take care of themselves and to do those things, right? But then when they are sick, we take them to school. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think that people say, here's a kid with 104-degree temperature. We're going to take them and drop them off at school. I don't think that's what's happening. But when you have a low-grade fever, we give the kids a little bit of fever reducer, and then we send them to school, and we go to work like this, and then wait by the phone to see whether or not it sticks. But here's my thing. When you do things like that, you actually teach the children that their health is not necessarily the most important thing, that everyone else needs to be prioritized over them. And then the secondary part of that is that then they're not as important than your job, right? But I get it why we do that, because we need to make that money. We need to be able to do that and to take care of them. But the results and the outcomes turn out to be that your children will replicate what you demonstrate when you do things like that. And that's the thing that makes it the contradiction.
Well, I agree with you. I thought this was an interesting topic because we were able to approach it from a variety of different ways. And that was the very first point about what do we prioritize for ourselves and for our children. So, we say that we value their health and we want the best for them. And then, like you said, we send them to school sick. So when we do that, are we really telling our students our children that we value them? See, I've spent all day in school today. So to our children that we value them. And so we want to make sure that if we do value them and we want to put them as a priority, then we need to make sure that we're setting that example that they are a priority. Um, so, like, if they have, like, a toothache, sometimes I have children that have toothaches and that kind of thing. Well, we need to make sure that if our children have toothaches, that we get them in to see a dentist right away. And I'm going to tell you the reason why too is because if they don't get the care that they need right away, it actually ends up become a behavioral issue because they're
Right.
like, oh, my tooth hurts, ouch, ouch, I can't do any work. And really they can't because their mouth hurts. So they're frequent flyers to the nurse's office. And then we're trying to get them to establish good routines at school, and they're not able to do so. So then what happens is that their tooth, they're finally fixed and their tooth pain has gone away, but the behavior lingers. And
Hmm.
so, and let's just take this a little bit step further. So we're worried about our jobs, right? But our children are starting to act out, and
Yep.
then what starts to happen? Hello, Mrs. Jones. Your child is your child's acting out, and you're like, "Oh, I don't understand why. They shouldn't be acting out," but it's a carryover. And then you think about that, it could lead to suspensions and all of that. So actually, by not valuing our children and their well-being, we're actually creating an even bigger like snowball effect.
Right. And that's why I say it's kind of a compound. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
say we got some visitors. So hey Kristen. Kristen,
Hello.
yeah. How are
Yes,
you?
got it
I
right.
always have to think about this. Mike
Hey,
Asherburn.
Mike.
Mike is funny because and you know what? This is a tricky subject for sure. I agree with her because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, our goal is to do the right things. But when we're caught between that rock and a hard place, you just kind of don't know where that is, what line, where that line is that we're crossing. So that makes a difference. Hi, Suzanne.
Hello.
Um,
Hey, Susanna. So I
Susanna.
I agree
Oh, is
with you.
that
I
how that
mean,
works?
maybe we need to talk about like that murky area. So
Yes. So you said
what
value, and Mike says I value Tabitha. I agree. So thank you, Mike, for valuing me. You are hilarious. But here's the thing. These are the reason why I started to bring these up. The value system, that's important because when you say to your child, I do love you, respect you, and value you, the example you exhibit to them is not one that resonates with them. So then it starts to have a problem, you know what I mean? And then what do you do when that mess comes back to you? And then you're looking at this kid saying, well, why are you mistreating me? Because you actually started a snowball of impact that actually results in behavioral challenges only
yes.
because they feel as though your job is more important than them. I'm sick. Why can you not stay with me? Now I'm not saying you have to stay with them every single time, but there has to be a point in which they understand that they are valuable enough. And I did it too. I made this mistake. I remember when my kid was just moved to Texas and he ended up with ear infections, right? But we
Mhm.
had never had that situation before because I come from the north. And I kept taking them to these doctor's appointments and things like that. But I kept taking him to school because I didn't understand what was happening. And we were on the medication. He was fever free. So I thought,
Mhm.
but I didn't
Yeah.
realize that the medication was doing that. So I'd take him to school. But at some point in time, I no longer could take him to school because now he became a little bit more lethargic. And the reason why was because he had ear infection, inner and outer, on both sides of his head. So that was actually making
Ouch.
situations worse.
Yeah.
But how I found out, because I didn't know, how I found out is as I'm driving and I call his PCP back up north, they were like, take him to the ER now. And so I was on my way to work and I had to make a U-turn and race back. So the point is that I get it. Sometimes we don't know. And I didn't mean to not value his health and well-being. But at the same time, I had to reevaluate how I was approaching this anymore. I really didn't understand it, but I know I needed to make a change. And then I did make that change. And so I stopped dropping my kids off and praying that they made it.
Mhm. So I can honestly relate to that a lot. My children had it seemed like I was always like after school going to a doctor's appointment. So I go sit in the doctor's office and pray that like if they were just a little bit sick, because I taught, it's hard to get the sub plans ready and all of that kind of thing. So I would take them right after school, take them to the doctor's office and hopefully get in, like if they had an ear infection, catch it before it got so bad, like what you're saying, Tabitha, that they just can't they can't function, or I would take off. I took off time for my children, but it gets hard, especially when there's a reoccurrence of being sick, because at one point my daughter had 185 days of a sinus infection, so I couldn't keep her home for 185 days. So there were some challenges there,
Hmm.
um, for those kinds of things. So trying to find a balance, and making sure that they know that you care, making sure that their needs are met, and if they were sick, keep them home.
Right.
Um, so oftentimes parents, they can get penalized, they can lose their jobs by taking off too much. Then their family becomes into it can jeopardize the whole family's well-being and homelessness and all of that kind of thing. So it just depends where you're falling in the socioeconomical status as well, and how much this will impact them. The other thing is sometimes you can't afford to go to the doctor.
Right. Yes, that's a big thing right now, right?
Yes.
A lot of people don't have medical coverage.
Mhm. And so, d then they can't take their child to get a to say that were seen by a doctor. That becomes an unexcused absence. They also can't
Right.
take that to their employer and say, "Hey, my child was sick." So, there's other things that are also, um, that come into play in this as
Hmm.
well. Um, Sometimes parents are
Yes.
stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Especially single parent homes, right? So a lot of
Yes.
them have that. You can only miss 9 days of school, period. So if you're on semesters, you can only miss 9 days of school. However, okay, we have a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of times in which if parents would ask the very, very specific questions and make very specific requests, they can get allowances to have that child go into cyber or into home, because there are cases
Interesting.
where kids are naturally sickly. They were born with certain
Mhm.
things, and they were having, they were
Like homebound, yeah.
yeah, so they're stuck, because what do you do with kids that have cancer, and long-term hospital stays. I don't know, my tongue is doing something weird, but long-term hospital stays means that they do have programs that actually help teach those
Mhm.
students while in the hospitals. But when they're in that place where they're not going to be in inpatient, they're going to be outpatient, but they have to stay home, like in a bubble or something. You have to make allowances for that. I just don't think, I think prioritizing school and work over humans is actually causing us the problems that we're seeing today. We're steadily talking about mental health. We're
Mhm.
steadily talking about the fact that the children do not have critical and independent thinking skills. We
Correct.
are constantly making comments about all of these various things and how sickly they are, how they don't have all of the proper things in place. And then we wonder why their behaviors, like I always ask the question, why? Why would they behave that specific way, right? Why did that happen? It's because if you say you're second every single time for a child, we're say, okay, wait, I'll get to you, but you're second in line. Wait, I'll get to you. You're now fourth in line, right? It's no longer your concerns will be processed in the order of in the order in which they were received. It's somebody else has to leapfrog over you, and I'll get to you eventually. So when your child does that to you when they get older, and they don't prioritize you when it's most important, it's because of the example we have provided that actually tells them that everything else outside of this home is more important than the relationship that I maintain with you. And that's where I believe that the contradiction comes in. And a lot of the contradictions are not ones that we verbally say, you know, you look pretty, but it would be better if it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's incorrect. But this one is one of those ones that you say, I love you, I value everything about you, but I need to go to work. So you need to go elsewhere while I go and take care of my stuff. Our lives get put on hold when we have children for at least
Yes.
16 years. And we need
At
to respect
least.
that.
At
Like
least.
at least 16 years. Some of us, we in there for a longer period of time.
Yes, we
got
sure are.
for sure.
Yeah. I'm going on 26 and
Don't
counting.
worry.
Yes.
I got 26 too. I'm with you, but yeah, and I do believe that's what it is. And so how can you convince a child that they should prioritize their own health if you don't prioritize yours or theirs when it comes up?
There you go. I was about ready to say that part too, because we didn't even touch upon that, did we? We didn't even say about prioritizing their own health, because that could be the same thing, that they might not even be practicing the self-care and modeling it because they'll go to work sick and all of that. So when we talk about those kinds of things, we're also, it's just not our immediate family when we make those choices. It impacts the classroom, and then that impacts, then they'll take home those germs, and it spreads way out. So we need to be very careful about, like you had mentioned early on, about giving that medication just to cut down that fever, or hope that the school nurse will say, you could just leave them here, or let them sleep, let them sleep it off, and then we'll try them back in the classroom, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Look, that's what's it. So Kathy's like, it's a catch-22. And it is. It's a very painful one. And
It
I'm telling
is.
you, when I figured out catch-22s when I was little, I was not happy. I was like, what are you adults doing? And I'm like, I'm charging the adults. How are we in a system that everything is a catch-22? This isn't fair to anyone. But here we are. We're stuck in this. And I don't believe in maintaining those. I think that we need to blow those up because they're not beneficial. It's not a win-win situation. It's a loss. Somebody's going to lose in that catch, and it's normally the one that's lowest on the totem pole, and that is equally going to be the child. And so, yeah, Kristen, I believe it's going to be single parents have a really hard time. And then if we had a better living wage, I think that this would not be as bad. But we cannot make that the primary reason that we use to continue to shelve our children for when it's appropriate and timely for us to handle them.
Right. And I also, I also think that it would be beneficial, like if a child was sick and then they present that doctor's note, that they should not be penalized at a work environment for taking care of their child and the child's needs and their education. And, just their child's needs. So I mean, those are some things to think about too. Because then what starts to happen is that education is not valued. So it becomes devalued when we start doing those things, when we start treating it like a babysitting service. School is a place where I can send my child to go when I need to go to work. And then we don't think about the educational components. It's just it becomes a convenience instead of a necessity to help their child advance. What do you think?
That is true. I do. I believe the same thing. I think that, unfortunately, this is just harder. And I was reading this, Joseph's comment, because some of the vaccinations have something to do with it. The fact that some of the children have gotten it's a pass or some type of pass that does that. But children are petri dishes. They sit there and they incubate some weird bugs, right? And then when they give them back to us, we're now worse off. And so we're begin a cycle. And I think it comes down to community, right? If the community is aware, if the community can support as a whole, you should be okay. You should not want to send your child to school for fear of that child infecting someone else. And when you infect one and then it goes there and then it goes there and then it goes there, it will circle
Right.
back and now your kid's sick again. And all we have to do, so is it that the school doesn't give allowances for long-term sicknesses, or they just say, here's blanket, this is where we are, this is what we're in, what we have. So they force you in a position to constantly take your child to school. So the school is not helping on one side. You only have 9 days absent.
See, I wanted to circle back when you said that 9 days. So every state, and I don't even know, and as I'm talking, I don't even know if it just varies from corporation to corporation. So our
No,
corporation isn't used to be like a certain amount of days. I don't even think it even has a certain amount of days anymore, Tabitha. So
no, I looked it up.
they've loosened that part up. So that's not that wouldn't be across the board. Um, so as
It's
far as
10%,
vaccines,
generally
and I
defined as missing 10% or more of the school year is associated. So that's what they're saying. So this one is from US News. So they do have some type of leadway, but they're still the same. It's still missing too many school days can negatively affect academics. And we recognize that. So not only are we not getting not only are we not being able to take care of them, but then now they're going to be further and further behind because they're missing those days. And I think makeup work and stuff fills in those gaps, but I still believe that it's still 9 days. I'm looking at it and it's across the nation, and it depends on semester versus quarter.
so I want to go back to that vaccination just to touch upon it just a little bit. So sometimes some people's beliefs are that they do not believe in vaccination. So they can do it for religious beliefs and they can go ahead and sign off on that. Um, and our school corporation, how they handle that is if they do not have their vaccinations, they do come to school, but then they have like a certain amount of time, a grace period to get those in. So then notes start going home. And then if they don't have those shots, then they're asked to just refrain until they get those in. That's how it works at our school corporation.
Well, that's nice. I don't know. I know some other schools actually have it based on religious beliefs and things like
Yes,
that. They can get those excused, but
correct.
then
That's how ours is.
you can welcome in. Now you're welcoming in. That's why which one is the one that's starting to make a comeback, and people are like, wait, we didn't have this, but now we have this
Is
this
it the measles? Is it measles?
measles
Thanks.
or
Well,
some. So the MMR, which is supposed to help save us, but some of us believe, and we are case studies that say that MMR actually creates a different challenge for us parents later on. And I do believe that once my child ended up with that MMR, his autism was shortly thereafter discovered. So
and then you
and
have
I
it. You
and I
have
have it.
some, and I was just going to mention that too. I know somebody within um, a circle of friends that ended up getting money because their child ended up becoming disabled from a vaccine. Um, so you just don't know what those vaccines are going to cause, and so anybody that has autism in their house or has predisposition to that, some people are saying, no, I do not want to gamble that and have a vaccine done because we just don't know.
Right. And I
So
mean that comes down to trust.
that's another part to it. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that contribute to this. My only
Mhm.
thing, but so what I want to say, I'm going to post this article in the comments shortly. But in most districts, it takes 17 to 18 days to reach the threshold for chronic absence. But schools become concerned well before then if they notice a child is frequently out. Right.
Mhm. Sure.
So yes, it's 9 days. I think it's 9 days per grading period.
And I would also go to say that probably enforce that more strictly than others. I think that would be fair to say that,
Okay.
that everybody those would be guidelines, but they could be reinforced differently depending upon the school district or even depending upon the state, those kinds of things too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I appreciate everybody chiming into this.
Yes,
So, because Kathy was
there's
like,
some
"Wow,
really great
9 days."
comments. See?
This is pretty good.
But
What'd
then
you
what
say?
Kathy said, I think that it would be different with COVID because once you have the COVID, everybody knows it's gonna be longer. So it wouldn't I think that there would be some, how do I wanna say that, like, grace period? Because I mean, I ended
Yes.
up getting COVID and I had to take how many d like, 5 days? 5 or 6 days. That's a lot of days. So I
Yeah.
just keep my fingers crossed and hope hope I
Everybody,
don't get it.
just hold on. Look, fever reducer, is it working? Okay. And
Yeah.
oh my God, let's not get COVID.
No.
Right.
I would be on the couch. There wouldn't be any fever reducers for that one.
Right. There's no COVID. That's horrible.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
yes. So if we circle back, prioritizing school and work over a child is gives them, it reminds them or validates that everything else is more important than them. That will then trigger a snowball impact, a snowball effect that actually turns around and becomes a behavioral issue for both parties, the
Yes.
school and home. And
Mhm.
then after that, what will happen is they will emulate the same example that has been provided to them for the first 12 years of their life. Because after you hit a certain age, we're like, okay, I got to go to work, but I'll be checking
You
on
did.
you. Sit here on this couch. Here's your water. Here's your juice. Here's your drink. And then we'll just go like that. Right. So I just feel like we have to do better about prioritizing our children over everyone else, because at the end of the day, let me tell you something. I watched where a man ended up. I work for this company, and I'll never forget, because people used to say all the time, these jobs will just step right over you and hire somebody else in your position. They don't care about you, right? And I was like, no, no, we make such a positive impact. They would never do that to us, until I witnessed it happen. And the guy had, I'll never forget this. It was so crazy because he had a spot on his liver, and just a spot. And they were like, we need to do more tests to verify what we see. He went in and they found out it was cancer.
Mm,
Within 60 days, he was dead. They had
wow.
somebody else in his position. Within the week, he was gone. My thing is that when you do not prioritize your health, you teach your children how to not prioritize their health, which ultimately results and can result in loss of life, or other additional problems and challenges. So a job, as my mom would say, you may need a job, but sometimes you just don't need that specific job. And we do need to be mindful of the examples that we are setting for them, because visually we're setting this example. Because our if our what our words are not in an alignment with our physical, the children pick up the physical and the visual representation first, and that's the one they take to the bank. Your words, they just drop right next to them, and they're like, you say, I said this, yes, but you did this, so that let me know it was better to do it this way than it was to follow
Mhm.
your verbal instructions. And that's my only concern.
Right. And I think you hit a valid point too, because we didn't even talk about the growth mindset of people and how sometimes we have a limited view. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't do this. I can't, I'll get the points instead of going, wait, is this the kind of job that's conducive to me to have a family and to be able to take care of my family properly? I can change that. I could go into business for myself. I could decide to, go to another business that is more family friendly. So looking at other options instead of just, pinpointing ourselves in so much that we feel very stuck.
Right. That's it. I love it. I think that this was a good conversation. I think that this might be one that has to circle back. We might ask a couple other people to join us for that, and
Yes.
just to understand a little bit of why they make the decisions that they make. I know for me, I didn't know enough to not make that decision. Do I regret it? I think for the most part, I just learned from it. So I learned how to prioritize better. And I actually did prioritize my kids over a job most of the time. I think, and I only found jobs that were willing to accept the fact that I was a single parent at some point, and then that I was a parent, period. At
Yes.
the end of the day, I'm a parent, period. I will have responsibilities I have to take care of. And if you are not willing or flexible enough for me to be able to meet my first responsibility, then you are not the company for me. And every company I've worked for has been that type of company for me, even some of the larger ones. So it's just a
Mhm.
matter of what you choose to do. So
Yep.
what's your final take on this?
So my final take is I was also just like you. I was married, and then I was also a single parent. So being a single parent is challenging. So I also found a job that would also prioritize it. I also moved to a different school where I could be closer after the divorce to my child. So then that way I would have easier access to being able to get her from school whenever I needed to, like if she was sick or needed something else. So those were some of the things that I did to help support my family during the time where I didn't have as much support.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I think that's really good. That I feel like if we can just end on the note that says, please prioritize your child over
Mhm.
what you're doing, because that will pay off definitely in the long run, but it will help create healthier adults starting from that child. So I believe that that's what we need to do. Stop being so crazy about a job or whatever. You can always make money somewhere. And if they're not paying you a living wage so that you can even do something, we might want to reevaluate how and why we're doing that. So this has been a cool
Okay.
conversation,
All
Christine. We
right.
only do
We went
30
over
minutes.
2
So
minutes.
yeah, we're over.
All right.
So we're going to go ahead and end here. Until next time,
Yeah.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest in discussing a contradiction or would like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.